Welcome to the Paco and the Seeker. I'm Tony the Seeker.
And I'm Christina the Paco.
I am really glad that you are here listening to us. I'm excited to do a podcast with Christina. This has been something that I felt called to do. I have a background of traumatic childhood and a incredibly successful career that never led to happiness. And then with my younger brother committing suicide when he was 43, it put me on a new path, and an incredible path of incredible healing. And I did a lot of therapy, a lot of psychedelic sessions, and I improved so much with a lot of different things, but I never really reached the pinnacle of the healing that I've done until I met Christina and started consistently working with her. So I feel the need to share that with the world, because I think this idea of ancient wisdom of healing is one that the world needs to know. And Christina's been willing to kind of share her story, what she does. And so here we are. We're going to do that. And hopefully you enjoy this. So Christina, how about you tell the listeners about yourself and how you came to this work?
Sure, Tony. I'm going to give you the short version because the long version's long. The short version is I had undiagnosed childhood trauma that set me on a path of one, dysfunction, and two, trying to overcome that, overachieving, questioning what reality was, all kinds of different things. That led me eventually into studying science first and then shamanism second. They were the same study, really. I was trying to get to the bottom of what reality was, what matter was, what healing was, who we are, all those esoteric questions we all want to know. But I wasn't going to just sit around and read a book. I was going to get into it. If we had to be here on life, if I was going to have to be informed, I was going to make something of it. So I've studied all these things for quite some time and then put them all together. I've been practicing as what the world would call a shaman for 22 years, something like that, almost 25. And I blended. I studied physics, I studied neuroscience, and then I studied Andean mysticism. Andean mysticism is a form of shamanism, loosely termed. I mean, shamanism is a big umbrella word, but what the Andean mystics call themselves are Paq'os, which is why we call this the Seeker and the Paco. And what I do is I blend these ancient traditions that understand that the universe is conscious, alive, that there's a web of creation that we're all made of and engaging with. Except they don't have any math and physics for it. They just have an intuitive sense of it, which is fascinating because it boils down to the same things that you kind of find out in quantum mechanics when you get into the nitty gritty. I blend it with, so that works for me. That works for me to understand this way of engaging with the world that's intuitive, that parallels, some hard science. The other thing that I do is I parallel it with neuroscience, because what happens is our energy gets stuck and blocked in trauma. And one of the languages we have in the West for that is neuroscience, is the nervous system, is the stress response, is how it somatizes, all these kinds of things. So these two worlds come together in a beautiful way, and I blend them to help people heal. And healing, in my idea of healing, is more than the parts. I think our culture is very materialistic, so it wants to see the brain as parts that need to be fixed. Even psychology wants to see the psyche as parts that need to talk to each other. And neuromysticism is saying we are an energy. We are an energy that gets fractured and coiled around itself and spiraled into dysfunction. And we want to straighten out that energy and make it coherent with this core self, this vibrant, divine self that's in the center of us. It's called in the Andean tradition our Inca seed. So that's where I come from. That's what I'm up to.
Okay. I love that. I think there's a lot of things for us to dive into. And hopefully throughout this podcast, we're going to get in deeper to a lot of the stuff that Christina talked about, that I've experienced firsthand, that I'm quite frankly incredibly curious about. So I think it's a great name for the Paco and the Seeker, as I learn and hopefully bring you along as our audience to learn about this very, very special ancient wisdom that Christina is living in this world and helping people. You know, she helps me. She's helped friends of mine. And so what I'd like to do this episode, I'd like us to talk through what it is to work with Christina, what it is to go and do one of her energy healings. As I said, I had come to Christina because I had discovered some repressed memories, some sexual trauma as a kid, and I didn't know what to do with it. My sitter, my psychedelic sitter, had suggested that I seek out Christina. She had been healed by Christina herself. And so that's how I got to know Christina. And I came in not knowing what's going on, really having no idea about mysticism, really not being a very spiritual person at all, and came in through desperation and walked in, scheduled a trip, scheduled a visit with Christina. And I just remember being very nervous, knocking on the door. And I remember hearing this big old dog. Christina has an amazing, gentle giant called Kuma that is there along the way. I feel like Christina, he kind of helped. He's a healer himself. And I go in and I get to meet Christina. She takes me into her healing room and really just does an amazing job kind of, disarming me and getting me comfortable, because I didn't know what was going on, and I probably showed that. And so, Christina, like when you see patients and you don't really know them much, I'm kind of curious, the way you're so connected with the universe, like what's going on for you? Are you feeling things about me when I'm walking in the door? Or just kind of walk through, like somebody comes in and sees you for the first time. What's going for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that my work is about making someone feel safe so that they can, one, look at themselves, and two, sort of let themselves be seen and put back together again, in a sense, because they're usually fractured in some way, and in some kind of back and forth between their parts. And I would say energetically that creates a sort of dissonance within somebody's being. I like to talk field talk, but that can sound more technical on some level than it is. On a personal level, I just feel you. I just have a sense of you. You can feel jaggedy to me. You can feel calm to me. You can feel super intellectual to me. It's all feeling. I'm very kinesthetic and very intuitive. So I just take it in. I don't have a scale or a box. I don't have a diagnosis. I just take in where you are. And it's my job to, one, pull the chaos rattle out of you energetically. So I sort of tune myself to calm, and you tune with me. I'll say disarming things. I'll make you laugh. I figure out how to get you to feel comfortable. I recognize usually what kind of person you are. Like, are you somebody that's really spiritual, really religious, really intellectual, I just kind of figure out, and then I connect with you. I think that's, as high tech as we want to get, the bottom line on healing is being able to connect with somebody and hold them so that they can feel safe in reorganizing themselves. So I just kind of tap into you, lock in, be a ground, make you laugh or make you smile or make you feel comfortable, offer you the things that you need to settle in, and just hold that. You know, it's like if you're a healer, you're like a tuning fork. You just hold that vibe so that person comes into a calmer place.
Well, you definitely do that. You did that for me. And I remember I had come in, and at the time, I was new to psychedelic therapy, and I was doing MDMA therapy, and I was doing therapeutic. I'd never really done quote unquote drugs, but until this. And it really came through desperation. And I wasn't a person that would have entertained that. And I remember coming and talking to you, and I had shame around using quote drugs. And I remember distinctly talking with you, and then I just said, I'm just going to say what it is, what I've been doing. And I just remember how you normalized that for me, and you made it okay. You made it okay that I was doing the drugs, and it really took a lot of pressure off of me. And then I came to find out that you see a lot of people that will have stuff come up in psychedelics sessions, and then they come to you for healing. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. There's a lot to say about that, and we can go into it deeper at another time because I know we're just kind of like starting this out. But people are now trying to get deeper into their psyches by doing psychedelic work, by doing psychedelic therapy. There are various different kinds of psychedelics people are working with. We're sort of on the frontier right now of bringing it back from the 60s and 70s when it was being used for possible psychological work. So we're bringing it back online and exploring it, but we're in our infancy in culturally with it. But my story, if you want to call it that, is I've been taking psychedelics since I was a kid. I started off when I was about 15, I think was the first time I did a psychedelic journey. So they are not new to me. They're actually part of how I got into healing, was starting to see, and actually physics and neuroscience, because I started to see that everything is energetic, everything is connected. I started to feel better when I would take them. I started to feel a cosmic connection. So I'm pretty sure they saved me when I was early, in an early part of my personal development, from being too stuck and too unable to have a life, really. So no shame around it at all. So that's one thing, is I understand them. Two, I understand that they dysregulate people. People have memories that pop. People have emotions that get dysregulated. What psychedelics do is they go into the psyche and disarm it, like you were saying that I did in person, and they say, hey, you can look at your stuff. You can release your there are parts of the brain that get tamped down. One, it depends on the psychedelic, but it's your amygdala, the part of your brain that's worried about fear, can get shut down, so you're more willing to look at your stuff. But then when you come back out of it, you're back into you saw your stuff now, and now what are you going to do with all that stuff? Now, like you said, it's like you had some repressed memories pop. Okay, great. When you're on the psychedelic, it's okay to see it. Yeah, your amygdala has been downregulated. There's no fear, but your amygdala is going to come back online, and you're going to go into, what am I going to do with all this information? So that's that's what MDMA does. Mushrooms will have a different effect. Mushrooms and ayahuasca, LSD, all those downregulate the sense of self. So when that goes offline, you're willing to explore the cosmos, willing to get into your dark, entangle with your dark, kind of personality traits. But again, when you come back online, you did all that, and now you're dysregulated. So both of them have the potential to do great healing when someone can carry you through the whole process. But a lot of times what happens is the process gets started, but it never gets completed, which is actually interesting in terms of trauma, because on some level, trauma is an initiation into becoming a different person that never gets finished. You get the rattle and the disorganization of the old self, but you never get that putting you back together piece, that bringing you back into harmony piece. So psychedelics would do that same sort of thing. They'll match that disorganization of your neurocircuits so that you can let go of old dysfunctional patterns, but they in and of themselves don't put you back together again. So like you said, I end up seeing a lot of people who need to be put back together again, who need to come back into harmony, if you want to speak about it in terms of energetics.
I think that describes me perfectly at that time, because I remember, and just so the listeners can hear this, I had this memory come up, and it was really kind of dysregulating for me. I didn't do anything. I just kind of dealt with it. And I remember talking to a therapist, a regular talk therapist, and I ended up stopped seeing one because she had a very poor view of quote unquote drugs. And I realized, like, this isn't the therapist. She keeps, like, I felt like judged by doing the drugs, which I don't consider drugs. I feel like this is sacred medicine. And so I'm looking for help. So then I find another therapist and I'm talking through, but I'm super dysregulated. Then I go into another session because I was planning on following the MAPS protocol. So I was going to do 3 MDMA sessions. The second one, I go in there and then I get more memories that are more real. And then it starts to be real for me. Like, this sexual trauma happened. Like, I was abused, and I was abused by my cousin. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, I never knew that was the case. And it's incredibly dysregulating because I'm like, what do I do with this? There was part of me that was like not believing myself and thinking I made all this up. And so then I come to you completely dysregulated because at that point, like, I'm kind of desperate. I talked to my trip sitter. She had told me to come see you. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. And I'm so grateful for that because I don't think, like, I was a materialist back then. I was a highly analytical. I'm an engineer. I'm a software guy. Felt like my whole life centered around how good of analyzer I was. So super analytical, such a materialist. I would have never come to see you. But I was desperate. I was so depressed. I had such crazy anxiety. And then I had this, like, ick that I didn't know what to do with. And so I come in, I'm sitting with you, you disarm me, you get me feeling safe. I loved your word there. And then you just started talking to me, and then you kind of worked me through kind of like a dialogue. We had a dialogue, and then we moved to your table. So you were like, okay, let's move to the table. I forget exactly how that is. So I'm kind of curious, like, when you're sitting with somebody and you're kind of, after you get us safe, and I was feeling safe, you kept kind of going questions and asking me questions, you kind of getting into things. So what's that next step for you? What's going on? What are you trying to do?
The way I talk about it is, you're an iceberg. You just came floating through my door, and you're sitting in that chair over there. And the top part of the iceberg is the visible part, the known part, the conscious part of you. And the bottom part of the iceberg is the unconscious underpinnings of whatever the top of the iceberg is. So you're going to come in and tell me all the stuff that's on the top of the iceberg, but I know there's a bottom to this iceberg. You don't necessarily know that, but I do. So I'm poking around in the top of the iceberg to figure out how I can get into the bottom of the iceberg. So I want to hear what the pattern is, what the tell is that there's something wrong. I want to lean into what your family of origin was like, so I kind of have some sense of who you are and how you put yourself together. And I want to find the delicate places, the places where you get a little bit like, yeah, I don't know about that, because those are the places in. But I want to treat them with respect and kindness and safety, and take you to that place of being just ever so slightly, oh yeah, that's it. We don't know. I don't like that part. And then that's where I'm like, okay, I have this Misha. This is my Misha. I have you blow into my medicine bundle, whatever it is you're feeling, because it's an envelope of information. In our tradition, everything is conscious living energy. So when you blow into it, that thing that's up for you, the Misha holds it. this is the thing, out of all the things in the universe, out of all the things you've been through, this is what we're working on. I usually make sure that you're having some kind of visceral experience with the information that's coming through. Like, where do you feel it in your body? Because that tells us that you're not just in your head making stuff up, that you're actually, there's some embodiment to it, because your emotions will show up in your body first. And sometimes, especially men, will tune out their emotions because, we're not supposed to feel emotions. We're supposed to be, warriors. But your body doesn't lie. Your body's going to go, yeah, your head's okay. Your head's a warrior, but I'm still feeling tenseness here and tenseness there. So for me, that's getting you kind of on board for you're feeling it. It's really there. I've really tapped into something that we're going to take to the table and go underneath the iceberg on.
Well, you did. I do remember you got me to, some emotion was coming up. I do remember we were talking, and I can't exactly remember what had happened, but you had gotten me someplace and you kind of just stopped. You were like, okay, let's move to the table. And so then I moved to, it's a massage table, and I'm laying down, and you have a blanket you cover over me, which is interesting because I'm usually hot. I'm usually a hot natured person and don't need a blanket. And I don't know. I think I was just in a mode of like, I'm just going to follow what you do. So you give me the blanket, I'm going to put it on. Cause I do remember knowing that if something was going to help, I just needed to really trust what was happening, which was, I think, an important step for me. And I'm just so grateful that I kind of had that mindset of, I just got to trust what was happening. So I got there, laid down, then you had me start breathing. And then you put your hand under my head, under the back of my head. And then you started breathing, and then you were breathing, and then you were kind of asking me questions. So what's going on there? What are you doing when you do that?
What I'm doing is the breath is going to change. The breath has a few different things. And the part that you probably don't realize is that the first thing that I did when I sat down is I started running energy. But you don't necessarily know that because you don't necessarily know what that feels like, and you don't necessarily know what I'm doing behind you because I'm sitting behind your head. But the first thing I do is I start running energy, because you are energy. And if I run a high vibrational energy through you, whatever is discordant in you is going to start to surface and push its way to a more conscious place, a more visible place. It might not be conscious for you because you have a dog in the race, because you put it in your unconscious, but I'm neutral. So I will start to see the parts of you that have been hidden in your unconscious. And so I start running energy, and then we start breathing. And the breath is to change your state of consciousness, but it's also to give you a tool to purge. So the way I like to tell people, what I like to tell them is, we're going to use the breath to bail the boat. So you're going to inhale, pull up whatever doesn't feel good in your body, in your emotions, in your psyche. It can be localized or not. Just inhale, pull it up through the nose, exhale, blow it out through the mouth. And so in that process, the person starts to be able to find a little bit of agency in the process. The second thing that I tell you up front, because I don't want you to be surprised about this, is it's also going to change your state of consciousness. It's going to put you in a slight trance state. So like the psychedelics do, which they downregulate the default mode network, a theta state, a breathing in a theta state, will also downregulate that part of yourself that's running your filtering system. This is who I am. This is my story. This is what I think. These are how these are my perceptual lenses. I stay in this box of Tony. Don't make me go outside the box. This is my Tony box. I'm comfortable in my Tony box. As soon as we start doing the breathing, then you start to be able to expand into, I'm Tony in my box, but there's other parts of Tony in here too that I can start to access. You don't just get, those things aren't just like you open the door and like all the stuff comes out. But what happens is you become available to anything that I can take you to in that space. So the thing that's not going to happen is you're not going to suddenly be like, oh my gosh, my unconscious is freed and I'm I'm in the midst of all my demons. But what you're becoming is more available for when I regress you back to an age to tap into that kid, the consciousness of that kid. It's usually a kid, not always, but you're going to be able to tap into that because it is there. It's always been there. It's you. It's just you had a division. Like, we do this is Tony, and we don't do this is not Tony. Right? No, actually, all of it's Tony. And now with the breath, we start to soften this division so that you can pull through what you need to pull through to integrate it into this Tony. So the breath does that. Those two things. One, it gives you a way to shovel out the stuff that doesn't feel good. But two, it changes your brainwave patterning. And I do that because we're about to go on this journey together where we're going to find whatever is underneath the iceberg. I'm going to help you find it. You don't know where it is because you put it there and you buried it there and you turned the lock and you said, I'm not going down there. And I might hit on the way parts of you that are protector parts and things of that nature. So that's always part of my journey, is how I navigate going in there and all the things that you've got around the gates. And sort of guide you through to help you find the piece that you need to connect with. Because the piece that you need to connect with is a wounded part. It's a wounded part that needs to heal. And healing a wounded part is letting it release what it's holding on to. The reason that you're in dysfunction is because it's not conscious and it hasn't processed whatever the thing is. Usually we put it in the unconscious, unprocessed, because it was way too big to process. We didn't have the capacity at that age to process it. So we're like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm just going to shove it down. I'm going to build a world on top of it. I'm going to keep moving forward. And so it's stuck down there. It's stuck at that age, at that emotional developmental age that we left it. And it's wreaking havoc. It's, doing Pop Goes the Weasel whenever anything like that event shows up. And so the psychedelics made it, big Pop Goes the Weasel. And then you're like, I don't know what to do with the weasel. I don't know what to do with this thing.
I didn't know what to do with the weasel. I didn't know. So you got me there. And so everything you said, that's what happened. So just so the listeners can understand this, I got down, I started breathing. So you're running energy, and there's probably a whole episode we can get into about what is energy. But for the purposes of now, you're running energy. I'm sitting there on the table. I'm matching your breath. Then my breath would get off, and then I would get nervous about I didn't do it right. And so I had to just I remember calming myself and just kind of go do this. So following through that. And then I distinctly remember there was a point when, and like what you said was true. It's not like a whole bunch of stuff came up. Like nothing was coming up. I was just breathing and I was just sitting there. But I remember there was this point when I think something was starting to come up, but I was unconsciously not letting it happen. I kind of had this, I wanted to say something. And I remember you must have picked up on it, because I remember what you said is, it's okay, let it out. Something along those lines. And again, it was a very important moment for me. It was like validating. And then it was like, I was super self-conscious about, and what I think what happened was like, stop. I think I started saying, stop. And I remember being worried about telling you or saying stop, because I don't want to tell you to stop. I was going to mess us up. I was super worried about messing it up. And what I've come to realize now is, I don't have to worry about that. I just got to trust you to do your thing. And so you open that up, and then I was able to say, stop. And then I started saying, stop. And then you were kind of doing, I can't remember exactly what all you were doing. I feel like at one point you came over me, and because you're not always behind my head. So why don't we talk about when do you move into different things, and what are all the things that are happening when I'm on the table and when I've found that thing we're working on?
Yeah, when you found that thing that you're working on, you're you're activating your nervous system into, some kind of high rev kind of thing. You're getting dysregulated. You're getting there's a neural. This is the neural part of it. You're getting, your nervous system is starting to come online, going, oh, this is dangerous territory, and it's remembering on some level what and trying to rectify the situation because that kid's frozen. We're finding him right where we left him. We're not finding him. We're not making him go through the process. We're finding him right when he's frozen and he's like stuck. So I recognize that's what you're doing, and I recognize that you are going to get really revved up and not be able to do the work. So what I do is I come and soothe your nervous system. So it's sort of like giving you a little bit of MDMA. It's sort of like taking it so it's not so scary to go there. So it's called entrainment. I bring my hands underneath you and I entrain you to my nervous system so that I put my hand under your heart and under your adrenals and bring your nervous system so it entrains to mine so that it has stability and structure. So it has a rhythm that it can connect to while it's starting to process what's going on. Now, if you were a kid and you had a good relationship with a parent at this time, you know, what we would do is we would go to mom or go to dad. We usually go to mom when we're young, and mom would hold us. Mom would bring us into her heartbeat, into the rhythm of her nervous system, which is a calm, stable one, and we would entrain to her nervous system. So on some level, it's a very maternal thing, even though a guy can do it too. It's just to take you back to mama in that sense, like bring you back to a nervous system that's regulated so you can emote, you can do what you need to do without it jacking your whole stress response. And that's, like if you were a gazelle running from a lion, you would run, if that point that you got away from the lion, that point where you knew you were okay, you would go and just shake it all out. But we as humans don't do that. And we often don't have a parent that's around when we have a trauma, especially these kinds of traumas. They're very secretive. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of hiding. So we don't know to shake it out. So it gets stuck in our nervous system. That same thing that the gazelle shook out, it's trapped adrenaline, it's trauma, it's fear. It's stuck in our nervous system. So we go to mommy holds us and it moves itself out. But or daddy, if there's no person with a nervous system to be entrained to, we just get frozen in that state at that age. So I recognize you're starting to come into contact with that frozen self, and I help stabilize your nervous system so that you can sort of melt yourself a little bit and come through and do some of the emoting, some of the processing necessary to release the trauma. Other things I do when I come around your body is I'll rattle over your body where the energy feels stuck.
Yeah. Okay. I love the way you explained that. It like really helped me visualize that. And that's what happened. So this stuff started coming up and I was like, stop. And then I really started getting very activated. And I remember kicking and I remember screaming and I remember getting so upset. And it was as if I was able to go back as that kid that was getting abused and finally be able to say, stop. And I remember kicking so hard and I hyperventilated. I mean, I didn't really hyperventilate, but I was just like, and then I was just like, so activated. I just had to stop. And I just was spent. And you brought me some water. You kind of just hold some space for me. We kind of, and I just remember thinking, oh my gosh. Number one, I can't believe that happened, but that just felt really important. That not knowing what's going on, just trusting the process, I was able to let this stuff just come out of me that I had no idea was there. And it was, still to this day, a very unique moment in my life that I was able to kind of come into that. And you and I have had a couple other moments like that, probably never to that intensity for me. And I think that's really, really special. it's a gift that you have that's really helped me. And that's kind of the core of what I want to share here with folks, is just that there's other ways to go about this. And so I'm kind of really curious about your view on this, Christina, because, you know, talk therapy wasn't working for me. I was so in my head all the time, and this operates in a completely different realm, not through my brain or my intellect. This is just me letting kind of this energy kind of get out of my body. Kind of talk me through that. What's going on? Like, how can what you do work without any sort of my brain being involved?
That's so complex, isn't it? Let's say without your intellect being involved. I'll try and give you a short version of that. Talk therapy is working at the intellect mostly. And the work that I'm doing, people would call it soul healing. It's working at this part of you that is much deeper than your intellect. Your intellect is a construct of your ego, whereas we would talk about the energetic field in this languaging. We would talk about this, this core part of yourself that is guiding who you are, about bringing those parts into coherence. So it's a very different construct. It's an energetic construct. And it's about bringing you back into harmony with yourself. So you're one field of knowing, one field of consciousness, one field of Tony, instead of lots of parts of Tony.
I love that. Because the way you just said that really describes kind of how I feel nowadays, after having worked with you for several years now, and really, truthfully, only 1 year that I've worked with you consistently. So I've seen you for a couple years, but I got really serious and realized that your work was the real work that was helping me. So in 1 year, like, I'm so proud of the work we've done. And I feel so much more in harmony. And so I loved that word. And the other thing that I kind of want to talk about here is my story is some of the worst, right? This idea as a kid that was raped, sexually abused. I'm imagining you help all kinds of people, and that you don't have to have been raped to get help from you. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what all kinds of people can you help with the work that you do?
You're right. It's all kinds of different things. Like, yours is serious trauma, and you know the serious trauma things all are fear-based. They all have nervous system components to them. So you know, and usually the way that you know you have something is you have some kind of pattern that you can't get to the bottom of. I mean, you don't necessarily know how deep it is. Like, you didn't know you were going to go into some serious trauma when you started. Most people come in to see me from the get-go because they have some kind of reoccurring pattern in their life that they don't know how to resolve, which tells us there's an unconscious aspect to it. There's some way that they've shaped their life that they keep running around in the same maze, this same they're still on the same hamster wheel. So they come in because they can't get to the bottom of it. They've tried. And, you know, actually therapists will send their clients to me because they can't get to the bottom of it because it's unconscious, and they know that I know how to get to the unconscious piece. So that's usually the first tell, is that there's just something that's not right. So it can be, people with various, like eating disorders, OCD. It can be people that have problems with relationships. It can be people who, have childhood issues they can't get over. They have a dynamic. They always attract addicts. There's these patterns that can be all kinds of different things. And they don't necessarily know what the root of it is. They just know they have the pattern. And that's all it takes, really, is I got a pattern. I don't know how to get rid of it. I don't know how to get to the bottom of it. And then we start in on our work. Some people have those things, have some more serious things revealed in psychedelic work. And I get them that way, too. That they get referred to me sometimes by therapists, sometimes by healers, like your healer. So lots of different things. Depression, anxiety. It's these things that you can't get to the bottom of. Chronic chronic things like chronic fatigue, depression, these things that are just, they don't seem to have any kind of root to them. They will usually have some kind of trauma base to them or some kind of unconscious underpinning.
It's hard for me to put in words how far I feel like I've come working with you. And it's just been a gift. And I will forever be grateful for the work you've done with me, for who you are, for how much you've helped me. And, my wish for the listeners that connect with that idea of all the different types of people that you can help. My wish for them is that they can find healing. And I can say this firsthand. You've got a magical gift that really makes a difference. So Christina, thank you for sharing your knowledge today. Thank you for what you've done for me. And I'll give you the last word for our episode here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Tony. It's beautiful to see the work that you've done. It's beautiful to see you shine, to step into your wholeness. And I think that's and all the things that we've been talking about today, the work that I do and the work that you've done are stepping into wholeness, not just managing your parts. And so there's this next level to go to where you integrate and harmonize. And you've been doing that beautifully.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Until next time. Bye-bye for now.